everyone, it's Reagan and welcome back to another video. Today I'm coming at you with my February book haul. Now I won't lie, when I was planning to film this, I was like, oh, I don't have that many books to show off. I have a few I'm very excited about, but then I started accumulating everything and realized I have quite a bit of books to show you, but all of them I am really looking forward to reading. A lot of them I've actually already read or have already planned to pick up this month. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right in. The first few books I'm going to show off are of course from Book of the Month. I have their February selects to show off for this video, and big shout out to Book of the Month for sponsoring this book haul. But if you guys are not familiar, Book of the Month is an online bookish subscription service. Every single month they curate a selection of 5 titles from a variety of genres, authors, voices across the community, and you can select one of those titles for $14.99 and select up to 2 additional titles at $9.99 each and get them sent directly to your door. The great thing about Book of the Month is because they've been around for so long, they have their 5 new release titles every single month, but they also have a huge backlog of books you can always select from as well. Of course, if you're not interested in the titles, you can easily skip. And I of course have a discount code, as I do for you guys every single month. You can use the code FEBREADS to get your first box for $9.99. But without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into the books themselves. The first book I am so excited to read, and that is Honey Girl by Morgan Rogers. I've heard non-stop good things about this. In fact, I just read, like right before I filmed this video, Riley Marie's review of this novel, which she loved it so much. At first glance, this appears to be very much a romance-centered story, and while it definitely has romance as a component, it's also said that this is very much like a personal journey story about a young woman kind of confronting adulthood and like what she wants to do with her life. This follows our main character, Grace Porter, who goes on a girls' trip to Vegas after completing her astronomy PhD. This is very much out of character. She's a high achiever, she's a straight A student, and she's definitely not the kind of girl to drunkenly get married to the first woman she sees while on this trip, until she does exactly this. This one spontaneous moment kind of upends Grace's life, and she's struggling under the pressure of her parents' expectations and the job market, and overall she's feeling burnt out. She then decides to flee her home of Portland to go live in New York for the summer with her new wife that she barely knows. And in New York, she's beginning to realize that she's able to kind of ignore all of these constant questions that have been surrounding her life for so long, and begins to fall deeply in love with her creative wife, Yuki. And I feel like this is a romance, but also so much about like self-determination. It sounds beautiful, and I've heard such excellent things about this story, so this is one I definitely hope to pick up in the coming months. The next book that you can select from, I'm not gonna lie, I'm also very thrilled to have in my hands, and that is The Four Winds by Kristen Hanna. Kristen Hanna is a very well-known author. She wrote The Nightingale, which is one of my personal favorite historical fiction novels, so I'm really looking forward to having another title of hers on my shelf. This follows our main character, Elsa, who in the early 20s basically has to get married to kind of save her reputation and also possibly save her family farm at the time. Fast forward to the 1930s, her family and her farm are in ruins, as well as her marriage, and Elsa basically has to confront the decision of either trying to stay and save her farm for the future or travel to California in hopes of finding a new life. I personally have not read a lot of novels kind of set in the Dust Bowl setting outside of like The Grapes of Wrath. I really personally love journey novels and family-centric stories, so I'm really curious to see how this personally unfolds. I also do feel like Kristen Hanna is able to write really emotional, character-focused historical narratives kind of set in a really well-known time period. We saw that in The Nightingale, so I'm really curious to see how she uses that skill within a story like this one. I feel like this is definitely a book that's anticipated by a lot of readers out there, so I'm excited to read it and see what I think for myself. The next book you're able to select from is Infinite Country by Patricia Engel, and this sounds like a very intense family drama. And this is a contemporary story following a variety of members of one family, kind of separated both geographically. Some of them live in America, some of them still live in Bogota. It opens on one of those family members, Talia, who's currently in a correctional facility, but she urgently needs to get home to meet both her father and also to claim the plane ticket to be able to be reunited with her family in the north. This is said to be a kaleidoscope of a story documenting how a family came to occupy not only 2 different countries, but also 2 different worlds and their fight to be reunited. Infinite Country is a story of 2 countries and one mixed status family for whom every triumph is stitched with regret and every dream pursued bears the weight of a dream deferred. This sounds like it's going to be a very impactful story. It's not very long. The author is incredibly lauded and has won many, many awards. She's the daughter also of 2 Colombian immigrants, and I believe she's pulling inspiration of her own family's experience within this story as well. Definitely looking forward to adding this to my collection. The next book you're able to select is The Kindest Lie by Nancy Johnson. This is set in 2008 and follows our main character Ruth, who is an Ivy League educated Black engineer. She's married to a kind man, and he's personally really excited to start a family. Ruth is uncertain as she has never gotten over her previous pregnancy where she was forced to give up her child when she was younger. She decides that the only way she is able to move forward is to make peace with her past. Ruth decides to travel back to the Indiana factory town of her youth, which is currently plagued with unemployment, racism, and despair, and while her family is happy to see her, she can't help but be reminded of the painful sacrifices her family made to give her a shot for a better future. In attempts to come to terms with her past, she begins to dig into her family's secrets, and she also makes an unexpected connection with a young white boy in town who is adrift. Nancy Johnson's debut novel offers an unflinching view of motherhood in contemporary America and the never-ending quest to achieve the American dream. This sounds like another very, very intense story, and I personally think the setting and the time period is really interesting and one that I think is an excellent selection for the month. And then the last book you can select from Book of the Month this month is Girl A by Abigail Dean. This sounds like, honestly, an incredibly dark, family-centered, kind of psychological mystery and healing-based story. This follows our main character, Lex Gracie, who doesn't want to think about her family. She doesn't want to think about the house of horrors that her and her siblings grew up in, or as her identity as Girl A, the girl who escaped and also saved her siblings from her parents. However, as an adult, her mother has now passed away in prison and her father has not really been seen, and she has inherited the house that her and her siblings have grown up in. She kind of travels there, and I think her siblings also arrive, and they have to kind of confront their childhood, and I believe they're working to kind of transform the house into something much more positive for all of them. However, they all have very complicated sibling relationships for very obvious reasons, and I think these dynamics are explored within this story, all kind of on the backdrop of the mystery of their childhood. Again, this sounds very, very, very dark and very intense, and it's said to be for readers of Room or Sharp Objects, which are both very intense stories. This definitely sounds like a page turner, but one that might sit with you for a while. Alrighty guys, those are all the books from the February selects of Book of the Month. Again, I do have a coupon code and I will leave a link to their site down below if you're interested in learning more, but let's jump into the remainder of the books I have gotten recently, as there are quite a few. First 2 books I'm going to chat about are 2 romances I picked up for the month of February that I hope to read this month. The first is Take a Hint, Danny Brown by Talia Hibbert. This is a companion to Get a Life, Chloe Brown, which I read last year and really, really enjoyed. This particular series basically follows different sisters in one family. They're all very close, but very, very different. This one follows Danny Brown, who's currently in the process of getting her PhD, and she really doesn't have time for a prolonged romantic relationship. Danny decides to ask the universe for the perfect friends with benefits situation. Fast forward to a fire drill gone wrong, Danny meets Sapphire, a hunky security guard at her university library, and then begins what I believe is a fake dating, friends to benefits, friends to lovers situation. I hear this is super cute. I believe it has wonderful banter between the 2 characters. Just all of Talia Hibbert's wonderful romance writing. I feel like this is going to be so, so much fun. The 3rd book in the series I believe recently came out as well, so I'm excited to read this and hopefully pick up that 3rd book soon. But yeah, I plan to read this in the next couple of days. And I also picked up the Kiss Quotient by Helen Huang, which I'm actually currently reading when I'm filming this video, and I can confirm this is super cute, very steamy and ridiculous, all of the best things that you want to find in a romance story. This follows our main character Stella Lane, who is very, very good at math, and she's exceptionally good at her job, which is creating algorithms to predict customer purchases. Because of her autism, she is a bit of a workaholic and she doesn't really carve out a lot of time for dating. In general, she feels like she lacks the experience to really find the perfect partner for her, so naturally she does the only logical thing, which is hire an escort to teach her the ins and outs of dating and being in a relationship, so she can kind of go out into the world fully prepared. Enter Michael Fan. They have lots of chemistry, there's lots of banter, they fall in love. This is super, super cute. There's so much pining, a little bit of insta love, but honestly, a book that will definitely make you smile and a perfect romance book to pick up. This is not a review, but I did buy it recently and I'm currently reading it. So, so, so cute. This book I picked up this month I grabbed for the Blackathon, and that is The Lesson by Cadwell Turnbull. This is a sci-fi story about aliens come to Earth, basically set in the Water Islands, and for the last 5 years the Yana has like been living above them, and the people of the US Virgin Islands have had a very turbulent relationship with this alien species. They've come for some sort of undisclosed research mission, and while they are an advanced alien race and in general are pretty benevolent, they also meet any act of aggression with a disproportionate amount of wrath. This has obviously led to a very strained relationship between the Yana and the people living on these islands, and I believe an event happens that kind of puts 3 specific families kind of central to this conflict. This sounds really, really, really intense. I've been trying to read more sci-fi and I haven't read a lot of alien-focused sci-fi. I'm actually planning on reading in this month, which I'm really looking forward to. But yeah, grab this for the readathon. Next up is a pre-order that came in, and it's such a tiny little book, but it is Remote Control by Nanendia Korafor. This is a sci-fi short story about a young girl who becomes like the apprentice of death. The byline of this book is really what sold me. It says, "She is the adopted child of the angel of death. Beware her, mind her, death guards her like one of its own." This just sounds so dark. I love when death is personified and into an actual being, and sort of the connection and the afterlife being present within a story. This is very, very short, so one I feel like I'll be able to read quite quickly, maybe a perfect book for a readathon. But yeah, I had this pre-order from the beginning of the year. It came in and it's really nice, even though it's quite small. It's like a beautifully constructed little hardback, so got this. The next set of books were all sent to me from publishers, so big shout out to them for sending them my way. All of them are very highly anticipated releases, so I'm thrilled. The first one is Beneath the Keep by Erica Johansson, who is the author of the Queen of the Tyrling series, which is one of my favorite fantasy series of all time, so I was thrilled to realize she was coming out with a new book this year. And this is actually a prequel set in the same world as the Tyrling series, but I believe it stands apart in that you don't have to read the Tyrling series to read or enjoy this. It's just kind of set in the same political world. Honestly, don't really want to know too much about this going in, because I do feel like Erica Johansson is able to craft a very peculiar and fascinating fantasy world. She kind of combines many genres within the Tyrling series, and I have a feeling that's going to kind of bleed within this world as well, given the context of what I know about the Tyrling world. But I believe this follows our main character Lazarus. He's kind of on the verge of adulthood, and he's kind of caught up in some political drama. This is going to be, what I imagine, very intense, full of fantasy and intrigue. It's also beautiful. I'm glad it kind of coordinates with the original covers of the first trilogy. So yes, this is definitely one I'm thrilled about. The next book I feel very, very lucky to have. It just came in the mail and I definitely squealed when I got it, and that is Chain of Iron by Cassandra Clare. I was lucky enough to be sent an arc of this, and I'm so excited. I loved the first book in the Last Hour series. I thought it was so much fun, so much angst, and the cliffhanger of the first one was just chef's kiss so good. So I'm dying to dive into this book. I have to wait because I have too many books on my TBR for this month before I can dive into this. This was definitely like a surprise arrival, but the Last Hours trilogy, definitely just like next level. I feel like with every series, Cassandra Clare gets better and better. In fact, if you're interested in reading her books, you should just skip the original Shadowhunter world, just read some summaries online and dive into the newer series, because I personally think they're just so much better, but maybe that's a controversial opinion. I believe this is set during like the Regency, maybe the Victorian era, and it's set in England. We have some well-known characters present in this world. There's a huge cast of characters. There's such a dramatic romantic plot line of 2 people unable to be together. I really enjoy this particular series because I feel like Cassandra Clare is able to kind of include some of the propriety and societal expectations within the Shadowhunter world, which kind of makes it interesting from like an urban fantasy perspective. Loved the first one, flew through the first one, so I cannot wait to see how some of the plot lines continue to expand in this world. I love all the characters. Last Hours, so good. And then the last set of books are all part of the same series. I don't know why this was my approach, but it is the Graceling Realm series. These were all sent to me by Penguin Teen. I already did a reread of the first 3 books, and oh my gosh, these new covers are absolutely stunning. Reading these books was so much fun, but if you're not familiar, the Gracing Realm series are basically kind of standalones, but each of the books are kind of present within the same world, and there are connections between each one, but centrally there's sort of a different main female main character, their own story, their own struggles, things they have to go through, their own romantic plot lines. But a quick overview of the books themselves. There's Grace Lang, which follows our main character Katza, who has a special ability called the Grace, which allows her to be very good at killing. She goes on an adventure and a quest with a boy named Poe to save the kingdom. Fire, which is set in a neighboring kingdom before all of the political happenings in Graceling and Bitterblue, the 3rd book. We follow our main character Fire, who is half human, half monster, and she has been raised and has lived in isolation for her entire life. She has extreme beauty, which kind of makes humans like very interested in her and almost to a point of obsession. And she also has the ability to read minds. Due to the legacy of the previous king and her father, who was his advisor, she's kind of tried to remove herself from society and politics, given that their rule was one of horror. However, the sons are trying to make a better future, a better kingdom for all, and she gets kind of involved in these politics. A beautiful story of like love, redemption, independence, finding oneself. Amazing. And then lastly, we have Bitterblue, which is set after the events of Graceling. We follow our main character Bitterblue as she's trying to get a handle on her own kingdom and kind of bring her kingdom to a place of healing after the consequences of her father. And then the last book within this realm is the new release, Winterkeep, which takes place in a newly discovered kingdom, and Bitterblue basically travels there with like a spy, tries to figure out what politically is going on there. I hear it has magical foxes, but again, I love this series so much. It has wonderful female main characters, wonderfully constructed romances that I feel like are all very unique and specific to the books that they're kind of placed in. I'm really excited to read Winterkeep. I'm definitely hoping to get to this in the next couple of months, but I did reread the entirety of the Gracing Realm, and it was great. Hey guys, that is my February book haul. Let me know down below some books you've gotten recently, as I would love to know, and I will see you guys soon with another video soon. Goodbye!